Peace, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. I'll wait for folks to get in the chat. Let me know as you start moving into. Let me know as you start moving into Clubhouse if you can hear me. Just put a 1 or something. Greetings, Akizak. Welcome. Okay. Hey. You know, I be having technical difficulties, so I want to make sure everybody heard me. Can I be heard? Peace. Okay. Greetings from my Sequoia. Sorry, I don't have any music. I can sing for y'all. The potato chip monster is back. I'm getting messages that there's static on YouTube. I'm gonna try something. Let me know if that's better. Not sure. Is that better? Can you hear me on Clubhouse? Just in case, I might make somebody a moderator. As y'all know, Clubhouse is still static. Oh boy. Let me see. All right. I don't know if that worked, but if you can still hear me like through the static, as long as it's not too bad. As long as it's not too bad. That's cool. Oh, you can't hear me on Clubhouse again. Oh my goodness. I'm not sure what's up with the Clubhouse thing. Can you hear me?
Yes, they can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Give thanks to you, y'all. So let's open. After all of that, let's open up this space. Give thanks to the Most High Yah for this first day as we start another cycle of 7. The first 6 will be for work and getting it all in and being progressive and productive. And the 7th will be a day of rest. Give thanks to you, Yah, for being in the space and also allowing all of these platforms for us to deliberate on and share our understandings and deliberate with one another and even bring new people to deliberate on these platforms as we discuss our culture and our way of life and modelship. So today, we're talking about the looking glass, right? And I thought about the looking glass. I don't know. I was just kind of pondering on reflection and what we reflect and how we reflect. In Anu, we are reflections of the Most High. Anu is a patriarchy, and so therefore, we follow that hierarchy of what patriarchy is, from the Elohim to the man to the junior man to the woman to the junior woman down to the children. So as women and as a woman, I reflect the light of my covering or my mate. And so do the other women in Anu. Like, that is our charge. Greetings, top tier speakers on YouTube, and greetings, Imanaya. Yes, I'm outside. Yes, it's kind of chilly, but not so much. Anyway, so we're talking about reflections. And of course, as always, if anyone wants to jump in or has any thoughts, you can come in live on the feed on Facebook or YouTube. And you can also join me here on stage on Clubhouse. And I put the link in the chat on both YouTube and Facebook. So we're back to the looking glass, right? So what is a looking glass? So, put it in the chat or jump on stage and you can just shout it out. What is a looking glass? It's a mirror, right? Other surfaces can be looking glasses, right? Water, windows, any kind of glass, like polished glass where you can see your reflection. Chrome, not the brush kind, but like the polished chrome, like they be spinning on rims and things like, of that like materials. Like you can see, right? And so why can we see? Because also another example, cell phones, right? Like so when our cell phones or iPads are dark, even on dark surfaces that have like a smooth like glass top, you can see yourself. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be backed by something. We know that most mirrors, they're backed by a silver lining because that silver reflects the light the best. And so you can see more clearly. But as you walk past a window, or like if you're out in the stores and shopping, you can see your reflection because light is reflecting and bouncing off of that surface. So what is the job of a mirror? Well, we just talked about it. It is to reflect and reflect light. So reflect, we always look up words here in Anu. That is our charge to know what a word means, like the etymology of a word. Is to go back, and flex is to bend. So when we hear the word reflect together, it means to bend back. So light is being bent back. Refract is similar, but they have different laws when it comes to like sight and vision. So reflection, when something's reflected, it needs light to be seen. That's how our eyes work. And most of what we see, because most surfaces are not smooth like a glass, is what they call diffused reflection. And when it's refracted, it's also, and fract means to break or to crack, and not necessarily used like that, as much anymore as far as the word separate fract. But when we talk about refraction, it is also a similar, bending of light. But whereas reflection will be like a equal angle when it's reflected off, refraction has some different variances. Um, so it's the changing of direction in light. So it's also to like bend or break that light and project it out somewhere else. Peace to everyone coming into the chat. Peace Abu Haru. Peace Adi Adaram. Peace Imayakira Eden. And welcome Okambi Ifayore. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm not sure if anybody else has joined on Clubhouse. If you are there, peace, 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 Imakuya, peace, Shonda, welcome, peace, Rob, peace, Sister Iris, and peace, Raheem. Thank you so much for joining us. So we're talking about the looking glass and reflection. And if you're joining us after, you can catch the replay on Clubhouse, and you can also catch the video on replay on video on YouTube and or Facebook on the Anu Life Global channel. So going back to reflection and refraction. So the mirror's job is to reflect and to reflect light. And so like what's the purpose of this? So supposedly it's supposed to reflect the truth of our environment, right? So right now you're seeing me on the video. It's not necessarily a mirror, but there's a lens inside of the device that I'm using, and it is bending and it's reflecting and refracting what it's seeing here. But the image is reversed, right? So I'm right now raising my right hand, and it may look on some screens, it may look like I'm raising my left hand. When I'm looking at myself, it looks like I'm raising my left hand. But so that's the idea of the mirror. It like bounces back, but when we're looking at the mirror, it's giving you the opposite of what's happening. So that's the trick of the mirror. Like, so there's a truth in the environment, but you can't get stuck in the part that is not real. It's not you can't get stuck in the illusion, right? And that brings us to like different things that the mirror or the looking glass represents. It can represent reality, so the environment around us. Illusion can make things look larger. Funny story about things looking larger. A lot of times mirrors sometimes are used in like design, even though in many cases, in a lot of cases, it's against, different spaces and feng shui and how we should, form the decor in our homes, because mirrors also energy, and you don't want wrong energy bouncing off the walls in your house. But a lot of times, like, mirrors are used to expand spaces and make it look larger because of all the light that's being reflected. So once, a very, very long time ago, I was walking, we were looking at homes. We had recently moved to Florida. This is when I was very young. We had recently moved to Florida. So I was out with my mother and we were looking at different like open homes to look at like design and decoration and stuff. And so we walked into like an open model home. And I have this thing for like little big, I call them little big houses. So they look small on the outside, but they're ginormous on the inside. I'm always amazed at that. And so we walk in, and I'm like, "This house is huge," because it was a single ranch home, like a single level house. And I'm like, "This house is huge," and I'm just like looking at everything, and I'm walking. And next thing I know, like, bam, my whole face like hits the wall. And I go, "What happened? Like, what? I don't." I walked into a mirror because I was so caught up in like the illusion, not and looking at everything around and not paying attention to the truth of myself, walking straight forward and hit myself. I can't remember if I got a nosebleed after that, but it was pretty hard. Luckily, we were the only ones in the house at that time, and nobody saw, not even my mom, because she had walked into another room. But I never forgot that, and it was like, pay attention. As you're walking, like this is the trick, or as Chief says, like the technology of mirrors. Like you get caught up in the illusion. So I'm getting messages. I'm going in and out. Is that on StreamYard or Facebook or YouTube? You gotta let me know. So yeah, so I walked like right in. Audio is in and out on Clubhouse. So what I'm gonna do is make okay. So I'm gonna make Chief a moderator, and also again, like people are welcome to come up on stage, and raise your hand. If you
in and out of it, but it was before. I think it's fine now.
okay, good,
It's not
great.
a constant.
Okay, great. So it must be the phone. Anyway, so it was clear glass, super clear. No, it wasn't clear. It was a mirror, so it wasn't just like a window. You know how like birds like run into bam, when they're trying to sell like window cleaner. It wasn't like that. It was a straight. It was a wall mirror. That's what it was. And
You back again.
okay, I don't know. Maybe I should like hold it to my mouth. I'll do this.
Yeah. Well, are you back? You good?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. So, it was clear glass, super clean. I mean, yeah, it was clean. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I was paying attention to everything around and, the illusion and like the beauty and the distraction of everything around, which is what the mirror was there for. Rather than looking at, myself, coming towards myself so that I could monitor and be cognizant of, to stop. To stop and not like walk into a wall, basically. So yeah, so like reality, illusion, and other dimensions, which we're not going to get into. We're talking about reflection, but I want to, kind of cover the gambit of what mirrors, sometimes symbolize and other dimensions. Um, Plenty of literature and films, different things in entertainment. They depict the mirror being like a gateway to other places, like specifically, like a good example, Alice Through the Looking Glass. It's been made in, it was a book. It's been made into several films where we see this girl like go through the looking glass, and she's in this, fantastical world that's not real. I mean, it's a symbol for something else, but she goes through this world that's not real and everything is backwards. So like I said, remember the mirror is reflecting the truth of you, but it's also reflecting something that's a little bit off. It's not the exact thing that's around because it's a different direction. So she goes through and everything is like this backwards world. She sees mirror speech and mirror writing. The other part of like the other dimensions, like if you look, I like a lot of different genres, souls being trapped in the mirror. So many films come out with, souls being trapped in the mirror, and you'll see like all these scary images of hands and people trapped. And I always thought of that as like, are those the beings or persons that get trapped by the illusion? So they go through the looking glass, and instead of reflecting the light that's there, they want to be inside of that mixture of light and shadow that creates what we see in the mirror. So they get trapped. They forget about the idea of the reflection and they buy into the illusion. Chief has talked about, like, in different systems, when he's talked about, like, Oshun and her mirror, and how she's laughing, and she's laughing because she knows the truth of the mirror, that it's just an illusion. Those are one of the things that's in her arsenal. So that's what we have to, remember when we're talking about mirrors and reflection. The idea of the reflection is to reflect light, not to just get stuck in what we're seeing, but to reflect back. Um, I'll read a part from the Anu Way. You know, as Anu, as Anu, we are to reflect the mental, spiritual, familial, communal, and economic treasure that exists in the heavens. So we are, in the Anu Way, it also says we're personalized reflections of the source. So we're broken off pieces of the source that Elohim created man, for us to do and be a reflection of what they are. We're here to answer a question, that we're here to complete a purpose, and the purpose is to get the answer to whatever that question is. And we all have something different. So that reflection, if we're reflecting that light, that means we're working toward getting the answer to that question, and getting toward, and moving on purpose. So the other thing, sorry. Sorry. Peace, Akidak. I have to look at the phone too. So peace, Akidak. And anybody also jump in at any time. So we're talking about, like, the reflection. So like I said, so the question is, what are we reflecting back, based on our charge? Whether that be based on our charge, from the Creator, because we're all here sent for something different, and that comes through. If you're a covered woman, that comes through your covering. So what are you reflecting? We're charged to reflect the light, and women are water, right? And I always think, I don't know why, but the visual that goes through my head when I think of us being vessels, it's my vessel is always opaque. And I know sometimes, like, pictures of carafes can be glass, which is awesome because more light gets in. But I'm always thinking opaque because I'm thinking it's also a womb, right? Women are darkness, or a womb. So when I think of the vessel, it's always like this large silver container that contains water, so that whatever's going in is going into that darkness, that womb space, and then whatever comes back out has been unadulterated by chatter or noise that comes from illusions of other reflection. So when I'm pouring back out into children or junior women, or when I should be, it should be unadulterated, and it should be exactly what I'm producing, exactly what I'm supposed to, per the light that was poured into me. Akizak, I see you on stage. Did you want to say something before I go forward?
Peace.
Peace.
Blessings to you.
Peace, peace.
And peace to the Chief. And peace to Clubhouse Land. As you were just speaking, it started making me think of there was a video that was shared yesterday.
Uh-oh.
There was different ladies that were in there that he would bring in, and there was an elder woman who was teaching the junior one, right? You referring to Magnificent Century?
I love that movie.
So it wasn't one where now the elder woman was looking into the mirror and saying, "Man, I'm out here killing the game. I still look like I can compete with 20-year-olds. I still look like I can compete with 30-year-olds, right?" And getting stuck or crystallized on that image. It was more so now I have wisdom. With this, I have learned a lot, and I have been reflecting light that has been poured into me. So now it is time for me to pour back into the women, right? And not post on social social media or not. Let me just go ahead and do this so I can now still try to compete. Knowing that that time and that moment has now moved on, and now I'm doing something else, right? And then now it's time for, there's a different group that's now I must pour into. So not just getting stuck on, yeah, look at me. Yeah, look at this. And there was even a time where it was like that. Are you going to get stuck on that, or can you move beyond that? So when you were just speaking, it made me think of that movie.
Yes, I like Magnificent Century too. I don't know. You're right. Magnificent Century has a lot of lessons of reflecting, reflecting the light of your mate, and also reflecting what senior women are saying, especially when it comes like to the inner workings of a harem. It's a very good it's not a movie. It's a series. I think it's Turkish or Romanian. And it's good. You can find it on YouTube. Magnificent Century is very good, and it's a really good example. Give thanks, Akizak, of reflecting, and that reflection moving down the hierarchical chain. Um, so yeah, so reflection. So the other part of that reflection, like I said, it's supposed to reflect the truth, but we have to be mindful that there are things that are not true, and we can't get like stuck in it. So what are we reflecting based on our charge? What do we see? What do we hear? We had a conversation in the womb yesterday regarding one of the letters. Like we're going over our name, and like one of the letters that was really stood out, well, one of the three letters that stood out was pay, and it centers around the mouth. The symbolism is the mouth, and it can be like the opening or entrance, or more importantly, like speech. And so we were talking about how the speech is important. If you have like silence, like you have to have silence, not just quiet silence, so that when you're speaking, what you're speaking is intentional, and it makes sense, and it's true. It's even if it is judgment, it is not judgment from the wrong place, but like that speech has to come out and be righteous, right? And so the only way for that to happen is if there's no external noise, like and Chief said it in his podcast, Power of Silence. Power of Silence, I think, is podcast number 6. And the only way to get to that silence is if like mind, body, and spirit is silent, so that you can receive whatever's coming in. And so and that's important for reflection, because if you have all this static, like what's happening on YouTube now, we have static, nothing can be heard, or it's not going to be heard clearly. And so then whatever's produced is going to be all janky and garbled, or probably not at all. So being mindful of when we're like when we're supposed to be reflecting, really, really taking in like what that charge is. And I'm not saying that I have it all together, because there are some things that I have stalled on, and a lot of times that's because there's chatter, external chatter that's going on, and that chatter is like thinking like, what about this? What about that? We talked about fear, like that fear of movement and not going all in on our fellowship on Yom Shishi. And some of that, that fear is that chatter as well, because the fear is sometimes coming from, our own thoughts about like, well, how is so and so going to perceive me? Like, what about, colleagues or connections that I still have in this place? But if we're supposed to be modeling, our culture, then it doesn't matter what those external people say. It's like, this is how I'm setting my standard. We also talked about setting our standards. Greetings, Amy, Akira, Eden. And so that's important. Like that, when we talk about modelship, when we're modeling, I know that's reflection. We're reflecting our culture. What's in the pages of the Anu Way is we're reflecting instruction of what we're getting, whether it's a junior man or any other women. It's all that process of reflection and being intentional about what we were charged to do based on what we see and what we hear. Imikira, you had something? I'm gonna stop and pause. Put the pause on.
Peace, peace. Sure. Give thanks for the message, for opening the space, and the question. As I'm listening to you, and the question, what am I reflecting? Based on your definition um, of that idea of something being bent, um, I, I'm thinking about the physicality, the body, right, or even the mind, and how our mind needs to, or our thoughts need to really be coming from our mind and not the brain, right? And so there's a bending that has to happen, right? That, or even a yielding that has to happen in order for us to realize, wait, no, I don't need to be reactive from that brain impulse, reflexive, like, reactive space, but rather be mindful and use the mind to govern and dictate decision making. But then also, as far as what I'm reflecting, I thought about all of the times that I have said, "Oh, I'm trying," and I'm like, "Wait." Based on what reflection means, that it should actually, it would be almost effortless. It's like a doing and not a trying, because once something is bent into whatever shape, like if I'm just take a piece of a hanger, if you set an intention and say, I want it to have this shape, that's the shape that it has, and it maintains that shape until something else comes along and changes it. So that the shifting or that reflection should almost be simple. Like, it shouldn't take all of the deliberation and angst and worry, because if you're truly reflecting what's been bent into you, then the journey is a lot easier. That's what I'm getting from what you shared so far.
Give thanks. Give thanks. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even driving off of the thing, it makes me think of other cultures bowing. Like, one consistently practicing humility, not getting so high like, no, I got this. I don't need to listen to nobody. I just listen to myself, right? Or I just go down and listen to my own read. But in the sense of, there's always a timeline, right? There's always a way to do things, and it always just reminds one that pride comes before the fall. And if I'm just standing erect because I'm an individual and I'm going to do things the way that I want to do them, and people going to hear me in this, but ultimately you now become a virus in a sense to said community or to said culture. And now does one get back in alignment with said culture, so that now they can always be reminded that, I'm going to respect those who are in front of me as those who are coming behind me, and we're going to have to do the same. But if now I start doing something or going rogue, what ultimately is, what culture am I reflecting? And then now, how does that begin to work for the few that are coming behind me? There was even, I'm going back to the Magnificent Century when Sultan, his consort came out, or the chief consort came, and the Lord's like, this is my house, and I need to see my father now. And that was one of the things that when the elder woman started speaking to us, like, don't teach this boy this. That's not the culture, and that's not the way we do things, right? You are inculcating into this youngster something that we do not do. So now it's just a matter of, can one still keep that humility, practice humility, so that therefore the culture can thrive, as opposed to letting in outside sources that begin to ultimately attack.
And that's why the reflection is important. Like, with when there are children involved, if you're not bending the knee properly, right? If you're not giving that full bow to that rest, if you're not doing that, then what happens to the offspring? As we learn in solutions for dysfunctional families, that's a part of that. The cross cultural unions is because one does not want to bend to the other, and really it should be the woman, like, being brought into what the man is doing. And if that's not going to happen, it's like, no, well, I'm going to church every day, and I'm going to do it like this, and we're going to have the Christmas tree up. I don't care if we're Jewish, we're going to do this, because that's what we do. That's going to have an issue on what happens. That's going to be a problem and create issues with the offspring and the children that are coming up. Because then there's confusion, like, well, what do we do? Or they just kind of make up something else and just continue the confusion, and it just becomes like generational. Like, yeah, like we're Jewish, but we celebrate Christmas, and I've seen it, or we're Buddhist, and we have Christmas trees up and we do that. Well, because that's what everybody else is doing. So, I think somebody say something. Sorry. Oh, really? I've been talking the whole time. Yeah, it must be like a service thing. It's not Boost Mobile, I promise. I don't know what it is. It's not Boost Mobile. I promise. I don't even know. Maybe Boost Mobile would have been good. Excuse the plane because I'm outside. So, yeah, like, again, like, okay. Is it good now? Okay. Hopefully it wasn't dead air. I think, yeah, it must be the service. Anyways, so yeah, it's important to reflect and bend the knee. We talked about that in Chief's lesson on Kether. It's important, to bend the knee at a point, and always for the women and for the woman in a household, you have to bend the knee. If you don't, then you are being disobedient even to the Most High, because again, it's a hierarchy. So it's not like, oh well, I'm gonna I'm just gonna go over here with my scripture and I'm gonna pray and forget what he's saying over here. It doesn't work like that. There's levels to this. It goes and there's there's a pathway, a pattern that it follows, and like you can't step outside the pattern and think like, oh, it's gonna work over here because I'm going straight to the source. No, your pathway, or our pathway to the source is through the head, through our covering. And so that's why it's really important to have one. And because if you don't, like, you're literally like you're literally out there on your own. So the reflection is important. And a key to that, like the reflection from day one is important. Like reflecting what your father put into you is important. And it's important that, whatever that is, it also gives you what you're supposed to look for in a mate, right? So it's really important that we reflect from day one properly, so that when we come of age and it's time to be mated, that we're reflecting. I'm not saying like I am not one that was reflecting properly from day one, I'll say, because I was in the world, and so my idea or maybe it was a reflection, but that reflection was like, oh, you're going to do this. You follow what secular standards are, right? So then when it comes time to be in that family setting or that household that is righteous, you struggle. You struggle a lot because the chatter's going on. So like you said, you make care eating, like, yeah, it's supposed to be easy, but sometimes it's not. So the way to make it easy is to be intentional and say like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to reflect. And again, like, and the older you get, the harder it is. And I'm not gonna lie, the older you get, the harder it is. But this is why like sisterhood and community is important. So we can kind of check each other and say like, hey, you're not reflecting. I don't know what's happening, but you have what they call, it's called total internal reflection. Nothing's coming back out. So it's when that refraction is not happening properly. When the angle is too wide or too small, it's not refracting properly, and nothing gets reflected. So it's so that's kind of like, I'm gonna think about it, or I'm thinking about how to do, or even if people say like, well, I'm gonna reflect on that. But what's happening, it's really like a total internal reflection, and nothing is coming back out. Did anybody? The link is in the.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think that I'm glad you touched on the you're reflecting something part, because as I'm sitting here just jotting down some thoughts, I'm like, yeah, we're always showing something. We're always reflecting something, and oftentimes there's a tendency to want to deny what we're projecting outwardly. No, that's not what I meant, or that's not what you're seeing isn't accurate, or to somehow deny it instead of acknowledge that what probably happened, particularly if you do have headship or you do have a communal standard, is that you're choosing to strive. And I know sometimes when we say striving, it's like, oh, I'm striving or I'm trying. But I know in a particular command the day, I think it was like the September 13th encouragement command the day, she speaks about striving and how striving is it's like battling with that higher thought form. And an example that he offered was like you solicit instruction or guidance, and it's kind of like your mouth is open and you're ready to respond, even though you asked for the instruction, you asked for the guidance, or what you're reflecting was asking or begging for that guidance. And that's where that lack of humility, or as you called it, bending the knee, which means to bow, right? To show respect or reverence. There's no respect or reverence for that divine instruction, whether it's, in communicating with whatever higher power you're looking for guidance from, or an elder. When we come with that pride and lack of humility, or not bending that knee or showing that respect, we're resisting that adjustment, right? So even with the bending, I'm thinking of like a chiropractor. Don't inhale and exhale when they go in to do that adjustment. Try not to, or when you go to get a massage, tense up your body. You'll have more tension and more discomfort than you will if you actually just allowed and yielded to the bend.
Mm-hmm. Give thanks. Oh, Chief, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just gonna add on quick, because I'm hearing things that
Uh-oh.
consider a reflection. It requires light, or fire, and like Aristotle used to have this theory. It was false, but interesting perspective that um, that people had fire inside of their eyes, and this fire is what allowed them to be able to see the world. And there was some sort of connection with that fire and the actual sun, and the two fires would interact with each other, allowing them to be aware of the world. But at night, uh, um, that ability, when the sun was not there, then their fire would dim and not work in the same sort of way. And of course, that's not completely accurate, but I think on a mental plane, it is to some degree. Sometimes people don't realize that we all walk through the world with a pantomime. We all have this opposing reflection that's obviously the opposite, but it reflects every single point within our being. If you have a little piece of lint on your knee, and you stand in front of the mirror, the little piece of lint is there. A hair, whatever it is, everything is there, but it's not necessarily true imaging. So if you hold up a hand, or you hold, or you put your foot or something in front of the mirror, we have this left-right phenomenon. And that left-right phenomenon, just means that your left hand will appear as your right hand, and your right hand will appear as your left hand. And this is this is how the world pushes back onto you before anything happens. And some people are afraid to look into that glass, because what it means is that it's not just about me putting myself out there and being at peace with that. It's about me putting myself out there and then understanding how the world inverts that and managing that inversion, that left-right inversion. So it's the same thing if I had a shirt on and I wanted to write something on my shirt, but I was looking at myself in the mirror. I would have to write it in an inverted fashion in order for it to appear the way I want it to appear. And that's everything in life. In order to maintain a certain level of consistency, it's not just about what you internally believe or picture that, well, I put it out this way. Right, that's cool. But in this dimension and in this realm, inversion is always present. So you have to be responsible not just for what you internally think you put out there, but how it comes back in an inverted manner. Because that reflection is how people, and that's the grace and the gift of a mirror. Because the mirror is showing you, yeah, I know you put your left hand up, and I know you put your thumb up. I know you did. But in this dimension, this is how it actually looks. So you might want to adjust based on that inversion. And then you have another phenomenon within the world of reflections, and that phenomenon is the up-down phenomenon. If you were to put a mirror on the ground, for instance, and stand over it, now you have um, an image that extends out from you at the same height, as you're standing from it, but now it's a total opposite going in the vertical as opposed to the horizontal on the left and right. Sort of like if you stood in front of a river, it extends out, but vertically. So then if you're being a responsible person and you're knowing and you're respecting that you have to divide up the applications in life, and applications being just how you move through life. It's just not one way. It's like this is not one reflection. There's many reflections. There could be a left-right reflection. There could be an up-down reflection. And if I'm being a responsible person and learning how to use my different senses, then I'll erect a discipline inside of myself where I can understand that there may be artificial barriers based on these different reflections that spring up that I can be responsible for, instead of only acknowledging my natural fault lines. And understanding that there's other ways. I mean, there have been so many. I know. I think you mentioned Alice Wonderland. There's so many other times that's brought out through literature and film. You look at the movie Poltergeist 3, and you have the mirror in there. Of course, through the looking glass, just I'm gonna stay Alice in Wonderland, but through the looking glass. The Hell of Mirrors is one. American Psycho is a really good movie to watch to understand exactly what I just said. How what pushes back on us through that mirror reflection. Sometimes we have difficulty dealing with, and this is before a man steps in, a head, or anything like that. Just what we're seeing in the mirror. American Psycho is a good example um, of that, not being able to deal with your own angulation. Also, by Arthur Conan Doyle. He wrote the Sherlock series, but The Silver Mirror is a good one. And there's another one by H.P. Lovecraft called The Outsider. You can check that out. These are all just different examples. Thomas Ligotti wrote The Spectacles in the Mirror. That's another good one. But just different examples of how the mirror reflection. Matter of fact, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. There's a scene in there with
the mirror of Araset.
The mirror
of Araset or something.
Araset?
Araset.
Yeah, Araset. Yeah, the mirror of Araset. So there's a lot of different ways you can look look at it, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, where they use mirrors for scrying and for different sort of sorcery, But yeah, I would just say that it's just important for people to understand that there is a mirror extension that we're dealing with before anything. And one of the important things to always understand is that the angulation that you approach the mirror at is always going to be the angulation of reflection.
Right.
And that's a law that will not be broken in this dimension. So if I come at a mirror at a 45-degree angle from the right, it's going to reflect at a 45-degree angle from the left. So that, I wouldn't meet. I didn't do that.
Yes, you did.
The mirror is going to show whatever angle you come at is the angle that you're also going to reflect.
Give thanks. Exactly. I didn't go too deep into the law of reflection, but that's exactly what it is, because there's like a lot of math.
Go deep into the.
I can't.
What you got?
I didn't go deep because I was like, I can't. I'm not versed enough to go deep. The most that I could get, but I said that, the most that I could get, I was like, it has to be equal. That is the law. Can you hear me? I don't know. I might have went out again.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, no, we heard you. You said you was getting ready to break down the quantum physics.
I did not say that. I did not. That's why I said I didn't do it, because it's quantum physics.
You broke up right at that point.
Yes, but that law of reflection, it's a law, and the laws cannot be broken. As you said it. It's the yeah. It has to be there's an equilibrium, an equal plane. Like, you come at it from this direction, it's going to bounce back in the same angle on the opposite side. What you said about, like, the mirror is going to give you exactly what's coming back at you. And it just made me think about the story that I shared earlier about the mirror that I walked into. And it was giving me exactly what was going into it. But I decided not to even look at myself. I was looking at everything around. And so the idea of, like, when we're not paying attention to that inversion, like the mirror is saying, like, but this is what you're giving out, is because we're not looking at it. Because, whether it's we don't want to, or we're distracted by everything else that's in the mirror, so that we don't have to look straight on and dead ahead at our own selves. And then when we're forced to, it makes it all that difficult. And some of that forcing is like when we are within an organization like I knew, and we have to move by the laws. We have to model the culture, and it's like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to cover my head, or I don't want to have to listen to a man, or I don't want to have to rest on Sabbath. Those are the best shopping days. Then it gets hard, and those are easy things. Those are like the easy things. Some of the things that get like, I don't want to not eat meat. I don't want to lose weight. Like, those are the things that some of the things that I struggle with. Not the meat part, that was easy, but like, struggling to lose weight. There are, fat plant-based people. So those are the things that, are struggle, things that should be seemingly easy, but necessarily not. And we all have different levels of struggling. But at the same time, it was mentioned earlier, there's a striving. So when we are, like, actually fighting to, like, be like, look at ourselves, look at what we're bringing, and look at what we're reflecting, it's a striving to be set apart, and that's what we should be doing. The Anuwe says that feel good, self-affirming pursuits for abundance, celebrity status, idolatry, incessant entertainment, and many spiritual, and even like going to like others, hopping around, spiritual organization hopping. They only are, those are reflections of our aspirations to corroborate by secular standards. So again, those secular standards, and it's that reverberation and echoing of what I already want to hear. Like, so I'm just in an echo chamber. Like, I'm saying I'm going to be here and I knew, but what's really happening is I'm just going to have this echo chamber of like the secular world playing in my ear. So no matter what, like when I'm learning the laws and learning what I should be doing, there's still this happening. And so, and this is more comfortable to me, right? So then we sit and we stay back there. And so sometimes they leave, or well, no, it's not even a sometimes. I think in those cases, it's always like a departure or an exit. I'm gonna pause for a second and see if anybody. Okay, no, I'm caught up in the chat. There's nothing in the chat, so I'm gonna put the link in again. So if anyone wants to join the conversation over on Facebook or on YouTube, you can. And also in Clubhouse, if there's anything that you want to add to the build or thoughts about reflection, please feel free to jump in and share. Oh, let me check the chat on Clubhouse. Peace, everyone. I think new people into the room. Peace, Aki Hamza. Peace, Master Menelek. Welcome, Msitu and Shirla. Welcome to the space. So again, if you want to share anything, feel free to raise your hand and join the build on stage in Clubhouse or any of the other platforms. So the other
I
thing,
think it's also
Mhm.
powerful to recognize that your reflection in that those pantomimes, or really you have the one, which is you, but there are people who are all around you that represent also, and they may be the opposite of how you feel that you're symbolized and your inner, your inner vision of yourself. But the opposite of something is always that thing. So it's still the same thing. It's like this another again mirror. One was Snow White. Very
Mhm.
very popular mirror plot.
Mhm.
Or the mirror was central to that story. But if you look at the queen in Snow White, and then you look at Snow White, where they seem like they're opponents, they were actually the same. They were the same person, and to understand the mythology and to understand how stories are written, every character represents an inner aspect of one person. So when you're reading mythology, it could be 20 characters in there, but it's one person that the whole story is going to be talking about, and that one person is you. So every mythology is about you. So when you that reflection that you may read or say, well, wow, this character was evil and this one was that and that one was that, it's all supposed to be how you might unfold internally. So you look at like a Snow White, and we say, oh, she was the heroine,
Mhm.
but we don't realize that sometimes. Well, some people don't realize, and I'm saying some people, maybe we, because even I have gone through this.
So okay.
Like, damn, man, you are a scary looking guy. And I caught myself like looking at myself for a minute, and I was like, yo, you don't look anything like you think you look. You got this big old nappy beard, this wild brown reddish hair, like your back is wide, like you just look crazy. You look like a big giant, half wolf, half man. You're like a lichen. And I remember saying that to myself, like just looking at myself, and you got the mirrors where you can see all the different angles of yourself. I was like, yo, you look like a freaking lichen. But in my mind, when I see myself, I see that young, shy child with the big, gigantic teeth and the big head. That's how I see myself, you know. Um, but clearly, that's not what you are reflecting. You caught a second, just looking at yourself in the mirror. You look like a big ass pirate. So um, when you understand that, again, there's a reflection and then there's an inner vision, and we're trying to understand the unconscious and the conscious. That's the Snow White and the Queen. So Snow White is all of us in the beginning, because all of us in the beginning are Snow White. We're all pure. We're all innocent. And what happens is that as you transgress through life, you start to, because of life's experiences, you come to a fuller realization of the effects of life. So you may end up being the evil queen, Ravenna, or, evil king, or whatever. But what it is that, that's an outer garment. And the Snow White is the one who never had to be cleansed of those errors, or maybe was cleansed of those errors. So when we start off, we have this wave of grace and this wave of innocence that we begin with. It's our fresh start into the world. And then as we go through our path and develop our personhood and develop our humanity, then we have to face the effects of humanity. And some stories, like I know Zach mentioned the day we were talking about Peter Pan, he was like, yeah, like Hook. Hook was afraid of time, and there was a crocodile in the water that he was afraid of. And if you read the book, the crocodile had swallowed a watch. So he was the crocodile always made this ticking noise, and that represented time, of course. And what it is that the fear of death keeps us spiritually in check. We had no fear of death. We just whatever. We just wild out. So that fear of death, or sometimes even an obsession with immortality, like you have in Snow White, where you had the queen. She was really obsessed with living forever. She didn't really have that spiritual growth. But what happens is that you have to conquer that fear, and when you conquer that fear of death,
I think it's going in and out for me. So if you are not on Clubhouse, you won't necessarily be able to hear. I'm having a break in service for those of you who are.
his lips moving. So I don't know if she.
Yes, so I had a break in service on Club. It is a service thing for the Clubhouse. That's the reason for the in and out and the low sound. It's a service issue. We're in the boonies. So I missed the last part of what you said, but I heard the part about Snow White, and how we're all the queen, and then it kind of went out from there. Go ahead, Akizak. I think that was you. Or not.
You have humility to say, you know what, let me make a better decision so that therefore I can have some growth, or stay stuck in the garment that I have on because I feel like it fits. Ultimately, it's it. And it's just a matter of, can we now come in and accept that, you know what, I've worked hard for my situation. I've worked hard for this. It's easy for me to blame, well, you don't understand, it's the man. He's the one that got it. Society, he's the one that got it. But at some point, I have to accept my role in now the decisions that I have made. There's a point where somebody has came along and maybe maybe it was a word, or maybe it was somebody has held up a mirror and offered something, and it's like, I don't want to hear it. I'm going a different direction. I'd rather dance with the devil I know than the one that I don't know. Because if I do start going down that street, I don't want to have any more pain. So I'd rather just stay here. And that's that whole thing I've heard you say many times, like I'm here to destroy you. Like I can't give you something new if you keep holding on to what you think you have in your hand. You gotta let that go. And that's like that, you gotta go through it. And the only way to go through it is to be able to see it, recognize it, and then now to make a different choice. Even I'm going back to that movie, whatever it is, Magnificent Seven. There was even when the Sultan had to speak to one of the men that made a decision to, rip some people off and take some of their gold, and then they took them out of it, and he was like, "Nah, that's not what we did, right? That's not it." And now I have to reflect and say this is the decision that's going to be made now. And you can start to ask for forgiveness and all of that, but you're going to be held accountable for the decisions that you make. And when somebody holds up that mirror, can you now look at yourself and say, you know what? I'm able to put my head on the pillow at night, and I'm able to rest comfortably and get a good night's sleep, knowing that I have done right by myself and I've done right by others. Or do I wrestle with myself at night, thinking that maybe I should have made better decisions, or thinking that, I probably should have went right, but I went left. Or that was one of even the things that he said. The soul said is, I don't want to look at myself to be a tyrant. I want to be able to go to sleep. Can one now look at themselves and say, I'm able to get a good night's rest, right? Where I'm not wrestling with the world that's constantly pulling and tugging for my thoughts and saying, nah, go this way, but there's something negative telling me, nah, that's not it. That's not it. And can I finally listen to those who are further along the path? Those who might be sitting ravens down saying, this is what you can expect as you go on this journey and on this path of life. I'm going to give you some warnings, some things that you should look out for. I'm going to give you some things I'm going to show you some things that maybe you're going down that are wrong, that you can possibly start to implement so that therefore you can grow. Or do I want to still keep rejecting that and keep going down the path where I can keep fighting and
Give thanks. Welcome, Master Menulek. The floor is open.
Peace, everyone. Came in a little late, and I was trying to catch the gist of the conversation. I think I came in when Sister Yafe was explaining, the quantum physics of reflection. I was like, I'm not smart enough for this, so I'll wait.
Explain it again.
I was not explaining quantum physics. All I opened up as I didn't, and I'm not going to try. I'm not going to. The most that I could understand is that the most of what we see is diffused reflection, because most of the surfaces that we look at are rough. They're not exactly smooth, and we need light for anything to be seen. That's why I said, and that's why I ended.
That doesn't sound like quantum.
Quantum physics. I'm not a physician. I'm not the quantum physics person in the room.
What was that? Diffuse light? What did you say?
Diffused reflection.
Okay. All right. Well, it actually lines up with what I was thinking of when Akizak was talking, and the term accountability came to mind. But I pictured like funhouse mirrors.
Yes.
And when you walk through a funhouse and there's so many different reflections, you're kind of shocked, like initially when you see your reflection in them, but then you have this relief, like this doesn't really represent what I am. These mirrors are distorted. But then it's sort of like, I don't know, it becomes like a weird tool of deflection when you have like real truth or you have unfiltered light bouncing off of that mirror, or you have a smooth surface that's not blemished, that's not adulterated. It's showing you straight up like what it is, but you try to treat it like a funhouse mirror. So when someone is telling you what it is that you're doing or what it is that you're saying, or how you're affecting the room when you walk in the room, you're like, oh, that's not an accurate representation of what I am or who I am. But it's like Chief's example, like you have this mental image of who you are until you look in the mirror. If you don't look in mirrors often, or if you don't take pictures often, you may not realize that you might be a little knock-kneed or parrot-toed, like they call it, or you might even be cross-eyed. You don't even realize you're looking at one person with one eye, and you look at the next person to the left with your right eye, and you don't have a good grasp of your self shape. And when someone comes with that light and they help you to really define what your borders are, you get scared because I don't want to be this thing. I want to be what I think I am. And the more you define like our definition, or the more you help me to see exactly what's going on, then the less valid my fantasy is. That's what I was thinking of when you all were speaking. But I'll finish taking notes for the quantum physics lesson.
I don't give thanks. I don't know where this quantum physics is. But you know what? I'm going to go look it up, and I'm going to study it, and I'm going to put it in the chat. And for those of you who are not in the chat, you can go to www.onulifeglobal.org/join. So give thanks for that share, Master Menulek. I'm glad you brought up the fun house mirrors, because that was part of, I wrote that in my notes, like, when it comes to like the distorted image that we get caught up on. And like you said, it's like, oh, well, I know this is distorted, so then I can go rest over here and go back to my fantasy, but with this image that I think is actually clear. And I can just rest in that and kind of get stuck in that place. And that goes back to like that illusion, that the mirror can give sometimes. So rather than focusing on the truth of what it is giving, I'm going to focus on that backwards part, and not really, go deep into what I need to. Another thing that I thought of when it comes to films and like the mirrors, Dracula, a vampire, and they don't have a reflection in the mirror. They're not reflecting anything. And I think, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I think the lore goes like it's because they don't have a soul. And so I put that as like, there's no connection to the spirit. So like there is no reflection. So you can see everything around them and the reality and the truth around them, but you can't see them. And so I was like, well, if they're not reflecting, like, does it go back to that idea of like total internal reflection? Like nothing is coming back because I'm so into like whatever's going on in my head and what I want to see. There is no reflection whatsoever. Maybe you see like, and in some films like it's the clothes and, but in other films it's been like, they don't even, you see nothing. I think it was, Interview with a Vampire. It was a ballroom scene, and like you couldn't see anything. Like they're dancing. It was either that or Van Helsing. That's what it was. And you couldn't see anything. And in some films, you can see the clothes moving. You just don't see skin. But in this, everything was totally removed. So anything touching or contacting Dracula was removed from the scene. So when we kind of go so far into ourselves that we become vampiric, like there is no reflection whatsoever. And the only thing that there is to do is to try to, grab whatever life force that we can, to keep moving, because we're not going to reflect again. We're never going to reflect again, or maybe we will, but it's like really, really difficult. But for the most part, it's like, if there's never going to be that reflection again, I'm just going to live my life like, sucking off of what everybody else can give, instead of, figuring out how to reconnect with spirit, and find that way back. And then there might be some beings who never were from spirit. Not everybody comes from the same place. We may be all be on here, and what we see, what's reflected in our eyes, we may think we're seeing somebody, they got hands and feet and eyes and toes or whatever like us, but they're not from the same place. And so what we may be seeing is an illusion. So I'm gonna pause and open it up. Did anybody have anything they want to share? I want to make sure I got all the raised hands. Yes, I did. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely the aspect, the vampirical one of the mythologies is that not having that soul um, makes them also not want to look in the mirror because it reminds them of the fact that they don't um, have a soul. And then for some theories, it also is about the silver that exists inside of a mirror, and of course, this silver being a connection to the moon, which is a connection to emotions, which they are usually devoid of. But I mean, obviously, all just different forms of gypsy and Oriental mythology, but it's still from a proverbial mythological perspective. It's cool. Not just cool, but it's good to look at. But I would also say too, it's important when you look at when you look at the conscious beings that exist and understand that things that are alive are still in their process of formation. So the reflection is going to always be changing, and nothing. Some things don't come as a cause, as a product of cause and effect, but anything that comes into being as a product of cause and effect is an impermanent thing. And things that are impermanent are going to be things that are changing and evolving. So that's one of the ways you can tell if something is real or not. Did it come from causation and then come to effect? Causation is the place of heaven or the place of the unseen dimension. And then causation comes into the third dimensional realm, which is effect. Some things are just effects, or then sometimes some people are oppressed and haunted by certain spirits. Those spirits just live as causes, but they only have the effect that you give to it, So that aspect is important when we think about what really is this. The mirror reminds us also, like I said, of the duality of cause and effect. And if that's missing, then something is dead. It's similar to how people perceive God, if they like to use that word God, which is such a bad word because it's so all encompassing that it ends up meaning nothing. Like saying love. It's too all encompassing because there is a duality that must exist within that concept, and that's we're talking about mirror reflection. In order for a concept of God to even be purposely helpful or healthy, there has to be an impersonal God, and then there has to be a personal God. So if I say my God has done this for me, do you believe in God? I just made two different statements. I just talked about two different things.
Mm-hmm.
But once I say my God is good, or God has been good to me, how about you? I'm confused now because you're telling me about a personal relationship, but then you're making it like it's a general thing. So that's like an example of not recognizing the value or sometimes the vulgarity that we can impose on people by not understanding the reflections of of all things, really. Even within down to our own molecular structure. Understanding like when you look at that reflection, like I said, me looking at that reflection of time, me in clothing store, I'm like, damn. But you know what? Hey man, you had a rough life. So yeah, you would look like this. Yeah, that makes sense. And sometimes that's hard to understand that even down to the molecular structure, inside of nature, the shape of things speaks to the function of that thing. And that's just natural formation. So function is not just a product of atomic composition, but function is also a product of atomic arrangement. It's a product of relative orientation of those atoms to each other. It's a product of composite particles. So you don't just have something shaped like a tree. Using a grosser example, or shaped like a mountain by accident. Its actual shape defines what its actual function is. And that structural preservation um, can mean different things in a mirror setting. So like if we look at our own DNA, our DNA molecules form what we call that those genes are encoded inside of a helix. And that helix or the helices, they can either be clockwise or they can be counterclockwise in their orientation, right? And this particular twist, that's something that's inside of all species. And the proteins that are inside of our bodies, which are made of amino acids, they have a certain shape and a certain form in order to function in the way that they're supposed to. So if you were to create a mirror image of yourself, or a mirror image of a world, a galaxy down to the molecules, it would include also flipping the properties of those molecules that have certain centers inside of it. Now, the reason why I think this is important when we don't acknowledge our mirror reflection based on what we're speaking about, there are certain medicines. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Maybe as soon as I stop talking. But some years ago, there was a medicine that was given to pregnant women to stop morning sickness, as they call it. And what happened was that this particular drug that was given to them, it attacked a certain molecule in the body, but its mirrored form had an opposite effect and caused the fetuses inside the women to become malformed. So to me, I see that as like an example of like you got to know your core composition, and then you also have to know your mirror composition. Just like when I tell you with names, know your name from left to right and what it means, and then know your name from right to left and what that means. Because one is telling you the masculine energy, and one is telling you the feminine energy. It's just like the movie Snow White. When she kissed the hunter, she became a warrior because the hunter now infused her with masculine energy. It brought that masculine energy out of her. So I would just say like it's important to understand everything in their prograde and everything in their retrograde. And everything has a prograde in it. Even the sun. The planets, they all have we just talk about Mercury's in retrograde. Every planet goes into a retrograde. Every planet goes into a prograde. And you want to learn them back and forth so that you can understand the counterfactual nature of the mirrored universe and your mirrored self.
Give thanks for that.
That's all I can say sometimes when Chief Critters talking. Like, yeah. And also while he was speaking, I pictured like there was a trope. I don't know if they still do it, like as a gag. But they're like, he's my evil twin brother, and it would basically just be like, it would be the evil twin of the main character, but it would be the main character with a mustache and slightly darker clothing, and they do basically almost the same things that the main character does. They speak to the same people, they like the same woman, and they're usually better at getting the woman than the main character. I think it's kind of subtler now, but it usually happens with the nemesis, with the aspect of the nemesis when you're dealing with fiction. And
Mm. Oh.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example.
Hmm. I don't know if he's still talking.
A different route that maybe wasn't allowed to me by my programming, or wasn't really made available to me knowledge-wise based on my programming. Like, I could actually infect this being who's quote unquote outside of the matrix, and I could leave the matrix.
So I'm getting kicked out of the room. Yeah, so we're having trouble on Clubhouse. So if you are,
They have a different means of getting to it, and because they want a similar thing, like they usually get in each other's way. It doesn't mean that the antagonist is trying to kill the protagonist. It's just like what you're doing to get this thing and what I'm doing. Like we keep butting heads. Like stay out of my way. That's usually something that they say too, and they don't kill the hero. It's just stay out of my way. The hero keeps like, we have to stop him. It's like, why you gotta stop me? Just stay out of my way. Let me get what I'm trying to get. I don't know you. I'm not trying to know you. Just stay out.
so for those of you who are on Facebook and YouTube, go on over to the Clubhouse page because I think you can hear better over there. 'Cause I'm not having, it's not acting too well. So what I'm probably going to do is end the live on YouTube and Facebook, and we'll continue on Clubhouse.
Is Clubhouse doing a thing? I don't know.
Yes, Clubhouse is doing a thing.
Speaking.
Yes, Clubhouse is doing a thing. I'm getting kicked in and out with the service. So, like, you'll be talking, and then it'll just be like total silence. I can't hear anything. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're clear now.
Okay.
You were a little talk in the beginning, but you seem to be clear enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. I missed most of what you said, but give thanks for the share. It just the line just went dead. But give
Yeah,
thanks.
don't worry about it. Just think of.
But I think the room did.
With a curly mustache.
I did hear that, like the doppelganger, and most I think most things that I like when I'm always reading about the doppelganger is like the evil twin, yeah, the adversary or that shadow side of the protagonist. And I always thought that was interesting. Like, why is the doppelganger evil? maybe it's the person that's being portrayed as a protagonist that's the evil one, and the doppelganger is just the truth. So, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I actually remembered a couple of different, like a couple of different doppelgangers where you can see the mirror reflections of one another. They just go after different things. You know, like you could have Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, or you may have like sometimes it's like Superman and Lex Luthor. You know, like everyone's main antagonist usually displays some of the same traits. You know, but they just do different stuff with it. Like we got the same makeup, but I don't want what you want. You know, I'm not trying to save the world with my superior strength. Like I'm gonna use this to make sure that I'm straight.
Mm-hmm.
Peace. I'm wondering, based on what you've shared and what y'all were exploring with that the idea of the doppelganger, whether it's connected with that knowing ourselves or knowing our name or knowing our reflection backward and forward and up and down, right? Because if I know all of the, like, I know I can't be the only one that, you know, you experience something and your mind goes to a place like, oh, I could do this, this, and this right in this moment. And then you kind of look like, wait, where did that come from? Did that come from me? Was that my thought? And just being able to recognize that those are all parts of me that can be accessed and used. And yeah, you know, in TV shows or in mythology, it's like, yeah, that's the evil side. But I guess similar to what Okotiape was saying, is it really the evil side, or is it that unknown part that we may perceive as evil? One, because that's what all of the shows that you have listed, you all have shared and listed, tells you it is, right? But is it really that? Or is it just another facet of me that has the potential to bring me somewhere if I know how to harness and navigate and even be honest about what that's reflecting? I was just curious about, you know, how we, even in this conversation, like perceive or explore the idea of the doppelganger.
In the words of the mighty Aki Hamza, can I be heard?
Yes, you can be heard.
No, you cannot.
Yes, you can be heard.
What happened? Yeah, it just made me think of another. I keep bringing this show up because this show brings into like my DNA at this point. The show that Chief did on motivation, and it was just making you like when you just said like this thought come from me, and the difference between motivation and motion. And when I tell you have got to go back and listen to this and listen to this and listen to this, because it really starts to get one to look at, you know, are these things that I'm doing, and is the direction that I'm moving, is it coming from my own higher ideas and my higher drive and my higher purpose, or am I simply going through the motion? Am I simply on a track that ultimately somebody has put something in front of me and started pulling me, but there's not really anything, but I'm not really motivated. I'm just moving. Because now it's like that in that song Reasons, you know, after the love game has been played and all our illusions are just a parade and all our reasons start to fade, right? Like when all of this is said and done, right? And you no longer have the name tag, the name tag of your
job, or you no longer have the alphabets behind your name, and you no longer like, and you like, who are you? Who are you? That was even in the Lion King when he asked him, and then he's like, no. When Rafiki and Simba, and he was like, man, who are you? And he said, no. The question is, who are you? You up here running around a warthog? Like what are you doing, man? What are you doing? You were born into a bloodline that had you, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is what you came from. But now you got caught into a illusion of somebody telling you Hakuna Matata. You got caught into an illusion of somebody now telling you a vision of even giving you dietary restrictions, giving you how to look at the planets, going just erasing everything that you were taught, and now having you buy into an illusion where you don't even know who you are. Putting you in motion, but what is your true source of motivation? Can one now say, and then like what Chief was just speaking, which I got one word. It's like something he talk sometimes like trying to look over a fence, and he's like, y'all see that? And you on your tiptoes trying to see over, so you just jump. Glimpse of it. Come on, man. No, let's keep it like. I'm like, yeah, I think I saw a yellow truck. But I ain't sure. I got to jump in. Yeah. It's like somebody saying that, God is good. Hasn't he been good to you with those two different things? But ultimately, have you chosen yours? How many times it said, if you do not choose a culture, one will be chosen for you. Have you now sat down and said, you know what? There's a lot of mirrors. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of big things that people are trying to get me to buy into. But have I really sat down and really started to take a look at where my true source of motivation is coming from? As opposed to somebody who is motivated by maybe what's in my pocket, or somebody who's motivated by what's in between my legs, or somebody who's motivated by some other drive that they have, but ultimately just trying to get me to run. But then sometimes when people go home and they go to sleep, and like, I've earned this sleep because they're tired, but they've just been running but not going anywhere. Can one start to finally take a look at this and say, hold on, man, are these in alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing in my higher drive, in my higher ideas, or am I simply going through the motions by now falling for the illusion of what somebody has held up? So, man, I can't say praise enough, and I can't tell everybody enough to go back and listen to this show. That it's the gift that just keeps on giving.
Give thanks, Zach. I knew we was gonna get the Matrix or the Lion King in there somewhere. You threw me for a loop with the Magnificent Century. I was like, well, that's different. But give thanks.
Yeah, switch it up on you.
Yeah, the DDD stock is piling up.
It's all on the cloud now, brother. It's all on the cloud.
All right. Day upgrade. What you were saying just now about that piece from motivation, it also made me think of a lot of the stories that I'd seen from shows that I'd watched and movies that I'd watched. There's usually like the hero usually has like two motivations from what I've seen. Like they have the initial motivation, like why they start the journey, and then somewhere at the midpoint, like at their lowest point, where everything is stripped from them, they find like a newer, like a higher sense of what it is they're supposed to be doing. Like they do the same thing that they originally set out to do, but it's like for different reasons now. Like I don't want like even with the Lion King, like I just can't wait to be king because he's thinking about all the great things about being a king. Whereas And the second half is like, I have to be a king because I have to protect my people. Because this dude is just destroying everything, you know. Or you would see like a story where there's some sort of prophecy, like it was foretold when your mother was 6, that you would be a great warrior and you would free your people, you know. And then it's like, okay, you know, they do it, but they're going through the motions based on the prophecy. They're not necessarily doing it because they've internalized that purpose, you know. But going through the motions, they realize that maybe I'm not looking at this thing properly. You know, they make a lot of mistakes based on their limited vision or limited scope of what it is they're supposed to be doing. And as they push through and overcome challenges, like they really have to ask themselves, like, am I doing the right thing? Or how far does this thing go? Because I thought I was a shoe-in. You know, y'all told me from birth that I was supposed to do this, so I'm doing it. Why is this thing so hard? You know, and that's where, like, there's got to be something inside of you driving you to do this thing. It can't just be someone telling you you're supposed to do it. You know, you're supposed to go to school and get a good job and have a certain set pattern of life. You know, at a certain point, you hit a wall, and it's like, okay, but why though? You know, and if you'd asked the question at the beginning, your life may have looked different, or you might have wound up at the same place at an earlier point in time. You know, just, okay, well, why does my life have to look like that? Or why is there this prophecy on my life? You know, and it doesn't take away from the obedience piece, but it does help you to put into proper perspective, okay, this thing that I'm doing is not just because someone else told me to do it. You know, I want to do it because this is how I'm going to improve the status of my people. This is how, but sometimes that also becomes very distorted. So it's kind of tricky in a way, because the reasons you do the thing, they can trip you up. You're looking for validation, or you're looking for someone to approve of you, or you're looking for maybe personal gain, as opposed to saying, I'm doing this thing because I know it's what I'm supposed to do. And it's hard to get to that if you have like a distorted self-image, or you're looking at you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of dirty mirrors, and it's like, ain't I cute? Yeah, you cute. Like there's this video floating around of this I guess a single mother asking her son, like, do you want a girlfriend? Basically, she's asking him, do you want a girlfriend who looks like me? And like the son catches on and he starts like feeding her ego a little bit, like, yeah, don't worry about it, mama, you pretty. And then she's like, yeah, but you think you want a girlfriend who looks like me? It's like, nah, I want a skinny girlfriend. You fat, mama. I don't want no fat girlfriend. I want a skinny girlfriend. You know, it's like, I'm fat. I'm not fat. I'm like, so you around there talking to your child, trying to get him to feed your insecurities, and you're trying to distort what it is that he can clearly see. You know, so it's like the motivation has to be there. Like, he wasn't gonna say you skinny just because mama says I want you to say I'm skinny. You know, so the reflection of the truth has to be there too, along with, you know, completing what it is that you were put here to do. You know.
Give thanks. You know what? As you were speaking, I was thinking of like when you talk about like moving based on the prophecy and not because like you want to do it because it's inside of you. And I was thinking of Rebecca. And you know, when she was pregnant with Esau and Jacob, and she was told like you have two warring nations, you know, inside of you, and like the younger is going to serve the older. I'm sorry, the elder is going to serve the younger, and she was, you know, given this prophecy. And so rather than trusting in the Most High and like, okay, this is going to play out how it plays out, she makes moves and machinations to do something um that was like underhanded, right? And so and his name was Jacob Yakub, usurper. I think that's what it is. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Usurper. And it's like, he was given this name before it even happened. And then she goes and, has him do this thing where he tricks his father who's going blind. He tricks Isaac into giving him Esau's birthright. And the truth is, like, Esau said, like, okay, you can have whatever my inheritance is, but that was apparently different from the birthright. So instead of like, just, and even that was done underhandedly. And like all of this is like, because I'm not gonna really trust that that the Most High is gonna have all this happen. So I'm gonna make all these moves to ensure something happens. So like you said, like you get tripped up, and like maybe the pathway becomes like bumpier. Then you have a bumpier ride than you may need it to even have, because you didn't trust the process. You didn't rest in like what the process was going to be. I'm gonna make, instead of like bending the knee and like going with the reflecting the light that was provided, I'm gonna make my own light. I'm gonna do what I want to do. And so now you have a rocky road that you didn't need to have. Aki Hamza, I'm open the floor. Welcome.
Greetings, and shalom to everyone. As everyone has been talking, and I hear a current theme, maybe we could, out from it.
Are you talking right now?
Yeah, you can't hear me.
No, we see the bubble moving, but you can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I don't hear anything. He should have asked if he could be heard. Might be.
Yeah, this might be a hot-up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what he's doing.
This is an imposter.
hey, hello. Y'all can't hear me, man? Y'all can't.
We can hear you, man.
Hey, I'm serious too. Hey, alright, my bad. But let me straighten up. But now the movie that came to mind that summed it up was Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, and he has the famous part of the movie is called Destroy the Image, and that's when he runs into the room with the mirrors. He's chasing quote unquote his shadow or whatever, because that's how the movie is kind of played out. Because Bruce Lee because him and the supposed villain came from the same temple, right? But Bruce Lee went on one path and he went on the other, so there's like, no, you got to go correct it. So Bruce Lee went to go, address him about, what he was doing, and of course, he was running his drug lab and all those things like that. But in the way the movie was playing out, and that's what you begin to see. And then when he goes in there and they named that scene specifically, so Destroy the Image, because until he was able to destroy the image of what the reflection, what he was seeing, until he could see it from a different viewpoint. And like what you were saying, sometimes we can't see it. Like, I may be coming at a way like at a 45, and I think I'm doing something right, but what I'm actually being perceived and how it's coming out, you need actually someone to speak it back to you, or you need the mirror to be there. So now it's like, all right, cool, you ain't all jazzy as what you thought you was. You really need to do this, and this, because you at the wrong angle, and the angle you at is not being perceived with like either open arms or whatever it could be, right? So now you have to destroy the image of what it is you've presently been doing, so that you can come at the mirror at a different angle, so it can reflect true to the nature of what you're trying to be and become. And so that's the whole thing I was seeing, and that's the movie that came to mind as I was hearing everyone speak about the mirror, the reflection, and what's true, but also what needs to be seen, and the perception of what you think you're seeing too, and how like community can give you a better how would I say it? It can better position your compass, because at times we admit the way we want to do things, we want this, we want to do that, but it's like the community or the mirror is flicking. It's like, nah, but what you're saying you want to do, and the reflection of it, currently at is at the wrong angle. So you need to adjust that so that now what you're saying that you need to be and what you're trying to become, you can actually become that. And so that's all I want to share with the build. And I give thanks to everybody because Sister Jaffe, you did a great job with that physics breakdown earlier. So I just want to give thanks to you for that. And everything.
I know, right?
What? I never said anything about physics.
All right. Shalom.
Give thanks. Now I guess do I have to go back to school and take a physics course? Is that what this is?
Listen, sometimes people. This is why I said it. Sometimes when you're talking to people, right? They'll know a little bit about something and try to like low key threaten you with the bounty of what they don't know. So they'll be like, I got a friend who does that. Like he knows a couple of words in Chinese. So he'll be like, yeah, you got this particular form and that form. He's like, but it could go, but I don't want to go all deep into it right now. But what it is I know you don't know any other words except for those 3 words you've been saying for the past 20 years. So I was just messing with you. He was like, yeah, I don't want to go too deep into the physics. That's why I said, well, go deep into the physics. What else you got?
And then I followed it up with because I can't. I just said that. I said because I can't.
You whispered that part.
We're gonna play the tape back. We'll play the tape back.
But I have a kind of a question to put out to everyone. Earlier you all were speaking about the doppelganger, and oftentimes the doppelganger being represented as an evil counter entity, to the core subject. What if we're the evil doppelganger? What if they're good and we're evil? Because again, if you use the model and the idea that I was sharing earlier of a mirrored universe, which of course a mirrored universe is different than a parallel universe, but like a mirrored universe, then I don't think they'd be over there like, we're evil. It's not like the cartoons. Like, I want to take over the world because I'm evil. They'd probably be more like Thanos. Like, I have a good idea. I think it will work. I don't see it as being an evil thing. But you might, because you're sitting on the other side of this table, right? So I was just curious how people might take that. Because even when you talk about the mirror image, right? How do you know you're not the mirror image?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what makes you think that what you see in the mirror is after you? I mean, sure, I guess we could measure the light reflections, and then we can see, it would be, obviously a nanosecond sort of measurement, and we can maybe see which one comes first. But how do you know you're not the actual reflection? And when that person walks away from the mirror, you then fantasize about what the rest of your day would be like based on what you were just reflected into. So if that person puts on a suit and then jumps in front of the mirror to look at themselves, you think it's you looking at yourself with a suit on, and then they leave the mirror to go to an event, and you say, well, I probably will be going to an event. So now your reality unfolds with you going to an event, but the truth is you were just a reflection the whole time. And the reason I say this, or I ask this question, and I'm curious to hear some of the responses, chat or voice, whatever. It's sort of like the reflection of us and the Most High, right? We see the Most High as like Snow White, pure and innocent. We see ourselves as dirty and all messed up with humanism, and it's almost like there's a war going on between our humanity and our divinity to see who's going to be the cause, like who makes the move first. So it's just like when you're looking in the mirror, if I'm calling something a reflection, it means that I'm the cause of the reflection. So am I the cause of God, or is God the cause of me? And let's just say, what if, I'm not going too far, but I'm trying to keep it simple, so I'm saying stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to keep it simple. But let's just say, if my whole journey in life, if the whole point is for me to figure out cause is. Who's first? The chicken or the egg? Who's first? The man or the God? Who's first? The reflection or the reflected? You know, and maybe the journey of life is getting those two things to figure out who came first, or they might figure out that neither one of us came first. There's something above or within or outside of both of us that is pulling the strings and is the cause of us. And we're just latent reflection. You know, like we put a mirror in front of a mirror in front of a mirror, and it just keeps reflecting on and 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 on. Well, let's say mirror reflection 300 and 301. They may be like, you know, we're the originals, not knowing that there's 300 or 299 reflections behind them, you know, and an infinite amount after them. So I'm just curious as to if people have ever considered that maybe we're actually the reflection and we ain't really causing reflections, but the reflection is causing us, or maybe there's something way before us, or way above us, or way within us that's causing us to be the reflection. And what if you are the evil doppelganger? What if you're the one messing everything up? And your reflection is trying to rebalance all of the stupidness you're doing? Because I think most of us, if we sit down and ask ourselves, I mean, and I'm generalizing, in life, have you done more genius things or more stupid things? You know? So, I know I do stupid things every day, right? But maybe my reflection doesn't. And maybe my reflection is always trying to counterbalance them. So, yeah, I just wanted to hear from you guys. I kept it simple.
I know you kept it simple, but my mind went so many different places.
Yeah, so it's philosophy.
Yeah, it's philosophy. You might got a ladder. I can tell it.
Come on, man.
Like the neighbor in Home Improvement, where you can see his eyes in the fisherman's eye. But yeah, my mind went to a lot of different movies and shows. Actually, there's one show called Invincible, and there was a villain on it. Well, it's technically two. They're called the Molar Twins, but they're actually clones. Like, he's made a habit of cloning himself and then putting his consciousness into the clone's body. And he's constantly arguing with the clones as to who's the original. You know, when in fact, his clones have died so many times that none of them are original anymore. You know, they're just clones of clones of clones. But the original consciousness is there. But their beef with one another is we both have this consciousness, so who's the first one? And that was like the first one that came to mind. What was another question you would ask? Do you do more genius things or stupid things? Definitely more stupid things. That's easy to answer. Yeah, that's an easy one. But have I ever thought of myself as one of the reflections? Yeah, I had delved into lucid dreaming before, and one of the ideas with it is that every quote-unquote person that you encounter is like a reflection of you, like it's a version of you. But sometimes, like, I used to have conversations with them as like they seem kind of smarter than me. You know, it's like, what if I'm one of those quote-unquote dream figures, you know, or what if I'm one of those concepts? If I'm not the real person, you know, I never thought of it like that. Like I'm the one on the opposite side of the mirror. But if there was someone trying to clean up after me, I know that it'd be pissed. Like, come on, you left your glasses on last time, or you left your shades on the counter last time. You think you can remember them this time? You left your keys. Like, you can't do what you need to do if you ain't got your keys. How far you think you're gonna get? You know, just messing stuff up. But as far as being the evil one, another movie that came to mind was it's a Disney movie, a very goofy movie, and in it the whole movie the main character of Goofy's son Max is terrified of turning into his father, and it's like his father is like the worst thing that he could be. Meanwhile, on the flip side, the father is trying to pass on traditions to the son, and the son keeps rejecting them. So the whole movie is like them eventually coming to a compromise and trying to understand one another. So in the movie, it seems like Goofy is the antagonist from the point of Max, and Max is like the antagonist because he won't. Like, how can I get this person to listen? Because Goofy's whole thing is, I don't want him to drift so far from tradition and wind up in jail or something. So I don't know if that answers the question. Philosophizing.
I would say, okay, I don't know if I'm going to answer in order. Like, yes, I definitely have more stupid things than genius things. So when the genius moments come, and I guess they can only be genius if somebody tells you they're genius, because I can't sit there and be like, yeah, I was a genius then. But when they do come, if somebody is like appreciative or like, that was really good, I'm like, okay, great, got a point there, something. I have thought of, I don't know if I've thought of myself as like the evil one, but definitely like one of many different iterations on different planes of existence. So like there have been times where I had like a brush with like death, like crossing the street or something happened. It's like, well, that Deidre's that Yafe might be dead, or that one was Deidre. That Deidre might be dead because like she was a couple seconds too slow and the bus got her. And then there's other times where it's like looking in the mirror, thinking like, okay, like, well, what's happening on the other side? Is something happening on the other side? Like, am I a reflection of something else? And then other times, like, I am looking at a reflection of me. But they all kind of go back to this idea of like different planes of existence. I don't know if that answers the question. I also wanted to share, as you were speaking, Master Menu, like you made me think of Rick and Morty, because there is like a episode where he's going around killing off all his clones, and they find that, and all the clones want to kill each other because they've all made clones of each other, and at the end you really don't know who's the real family. Are we looking at clones? Are we looking at the real family? And then you have to think like, was the real family killed off like many years ago just because Rick is stays experimenting with time and space and cloning? So I just wanted to share that. So that's my I guess answer. Yeah, but you always can't believe Rick.
Yeah, but there was one where he replaced him. There was one where I think Rick replaced himself.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I guess we're looking
Jerry was replaced casually. It's like, is this your Jerry?
at. Nobody really cares about Jerry.
Just take him.
Nobody cares about Jerry.
All right. Let's go back to the Matrix. Remember when my man was about to jump the roof? He started rubbing his hands? That's what I feel like right now. All right, here we go. Where you about? Here we go. Let's jump, man. A couple things that came to mind was one, when it says, and these are all earthly teachings of what I've been taught, as far as let us make man in our image, right? And then, and also what else came to mind was, when you hear a song like that saved a wrench like me. So it's always been almost communicated that I'm the dirty one. I'm the unclean one. And that ultimately I would need to be polished and cleaned up or dunked in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. But to begin to reflect the light of the Most High. Now, I would say, just from the decisions that I have made,
I wouldn't say that something would be reflecting me. I mean, because then I would have to say that consciousness begins with me. And if consciousness began with me, and looking at some of the things that I've done, we in a bad place. We in a bad place. And I would even start to made me start thinking of even people like, well, if he's in my image, then it has to look like me, right? Of even trying to give it certain characteristics that put it in a space that ultimately this is just I'm just passing through. I'm just passing through. And if I'm just passing through, then that means there has to be another level, and that level ultimately has other laws that dictate and govern that plane. So therefore, there has to be something for me that of how there has to be something that I would be reflecting, and ultimately, can I pass this level of the game? Can I go beyond my the human trappings of saying, okay, do you want this, or can you see beyond that? Do you want to stay on the other side of the fence, or do you want to work like heck to look over and say, oh, okay? And I think that it's just a never-ending game, though. That ultimately, okay, now you can go on to the next level. You're making me think a lot right now, man.
What you said made me think of two things, Brother Zach. One of them was like, can you really be reflective and dirty at the same time? We always call ourselves dirty, and at the same time saying, I'm trying to reflect the Most High, or I'm trying to shine. You know, it reminds me of those watchers from Noah. Mm-hmm. You know, you're covered and encrusted, like you're full of light inside, but the light is not getting out because you got all of this dust and dirt all over you. And if you're not careful, you might start to identify with it. Because they were so shocked when they actually saw one of them open again. And another thing, I think I forgot my other point. Other thing that you made me think of. Well, yeah, I'll leave it there.
When you just said that, can you be dirty and still reflect? I'm going to say yes, because I look at it even when people play sports, and it's like somebody can show flashes of greatness, but then they'll start to go revert back to some old habits or some old patterns. So it's like it's in there, and sometimes, you know, when you maybe you're not you free your mind in a sense, even when it comes to sports, of not overthinking or not trying to dissect the play while it's happening, but ultimately studying the playbook, so that therefore it's like, okay, can you slow the game down? Where now you just start making great plays, but it's not you just being in the flow. And sometimes even it's like, yeah, I've done so many stupid things, but the things that I would consider to be genius are when I'm just in the flow, and I'm like, that actually. I've heard Chief do this when sometimes he's speaking and something will come out, and then you can like, oh, like, yo, but that's just in the flow.
That was good. Write that down.
Yeah, that's just in the flow. And when one starts to come in the flow, then they start to, you know, be a vessel for that reflection, as opposed to one thinking that if I'm the one that I have to do with, then now that's when it starts to the game. I become tense, and the game is moving a mile a minute. Life starts moving a mile a minute, as opposed to me slowing it down and then reflecting it, so that therefore I can just be in the flow and make plays.
Right. You reminded me of the other point. But I think another part of Chief's question was, you know, if you're on the other side of this reflection, you know, is you or the other one, like is reflection 300 and 301, like they're arguing over who's the original, but is there something higher, you know, or inside or above both of them, you know? And I think being able to align with that reflection, like with the Goofy movie, analogy, like being able to align with that reflection and ultimately help each other to get to that highest point. It helps to. I kind of imagine like a mountain, like two different places on the Earth's crust coming together, and they eventually like butt heads, and sooner or later they both start to move upwards. That's what comes to mind. It's a vague imagery. Apologize for that, but yeah, that's what comes to mind. Like being able to meet each other head on and let everything that's false or illusory fall to the wayside, as opposed to like just getting in each other's way, because you're so selfishly attached to the way you see things happening that you prevent yourself from moving upward at all, even if it's just for the sake of preventing your enemy from moving upwards. Like during the final scene of a movie, you see like the hero is holding on to the edge of the cliff, and the antagonist is holding on to his leg, like either both of us make it or both of us are gonna fall. Like that's the antagonist. The antagonist is seeing it, but the hero is like, nah, I'm not falling. So either you take my assistance to climb up, or I'm gonna make it and you're gonna fall. So it's like the antagonist is like, it's all or nothing. It's like the hero is like, nope, I'm surviving. Like either we both survive or I survive, and I'm surviving. And sometimes it's like that for our shadow side. Like I'm gonna get what I want, and then the consciousness is gonna recover from the karma of it. But I'm getting what I want. I think that's like the evil side of the mirror.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I was like, yeah, like I think both you and Akizak, I'm like, yeah, what regarding like, can you reflect if the mirror is dirty? And I'm like, it will come out all janky though. Like what's supposed to come out is not going to be that equal angle. Like you won't be reflecting properly. Like you'll shine out something, but it's not going to be everything. So like even using the example from Noah, like you could kind of see the bits of light like in the eyes and like in the mouth, like when the Nephilim were speaking, the rock monsters were speaking, but like it wasn't the fullness of what they actually were on the internal. I see Akoti Maria and Ima Sequoia on deck. If you had something you wanted to add to the question or answer, sorry.
Yes, I think Sister Maria was first. Do you want to go first?
She ain't on mute. Just rock out.
Yeah, you might have to go out and come back in, Akoti Maria.
Okay. Peace, everyone. I don't have the answer to the question, but this is something that I have been thinking a lot about, like in terms of like evil and good. So I think about like the Luciferian aspect, and so I went back to my notes on Genesis, and so I guess I'll just share like what I have. So like Lucifer wanted to soar above Yahuwah's throne. So we have Enki that told Adoma and Hawa that they were slaves in the garden, so they became aware. So there's the Luciferian aspect and rebellion aspect. So like he told them or whispered in their ear to tell them like, hey, let me liberate you and tell you what's really going on. But then, okay, so if Enki did that, and Cain is of a pure bloodline, Enki is Cain's father, and the story of Havel and Cain is really a beef between Enki and Enlil, then it just makes me think like, okay, but Cain was pure blood, but Enki was the rebellion aspect. Isn't that the evil aspect? And then I think about, but there's a segment that evil is good, But then there was just a podcast done about devils. So in my head, I am trying to figure it out. But and then also was said in the Genesis that every day you have to prove who you say you are. So you have to prove what seed you're from. So those are kind of my thoughts, but I don't have the answer to the question. And I do think, like, okay, it was mentioned that what if the bad guys are the good guys and the good guys are the bad guys? But I don't know how to look at it, But that's what I wanted to share.
Peace, greetings. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Greetings, Oba. Greetings, everyone. Peace. It's funny. I started thinking about even before the question she asked. I was thinking about there is a line in scripture that speaks about paying attention to the word, and also, a man who looks at his face and pulls away and actually forgets what he looks like. And I think about, Chief, you mentioned standing in the mirror. And consider this was like probably an hour ago. This standing in the mirror and thinking about what you think yourself to be, but then looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing this is what it is. And with your question, am I the cause of God, or is God am I the cause of God, or is God the cause of me? It brought me to how many of us have done the activity in Unsududu House from the spiritual training? I'm not going to give it away, so don't stop me. But if you've ever done it, I know when I did it, that question jogged my memory about the experience and how I was walking around for a while saying, but which one is it? Is it what's in there that's real, or is it out here? Because, the experience was so jarring. And one of the expectations is that you kind of create a spirit, right, from that experience or that journey. It made me, and then that too made me then think about what is the animating force that brings me to life. And I'm not saying this is anywhere close to an answer, but if I have a soul and the body is just a vehicle, and it's filled with spirit that animates it, but then I have a soul, and that soul is like a portion of the Most High, and that is exactly what is like connected to divine breath, which brings life to this version of me. Then I would say there is another force outside of this physical body that is, to a certain degree pulling the strings, because it doesn't, from my understanding, and maybe I am not understanding, I'm not pulling those strings when it comes to, awakening this body, this physical body on this plane. Or maybe I am, maybe I am. But just the answer, which is not an answer, it's, what I am thinking is, there's that me or divine breath that, pours consciousness in, and then I am given a spirit, and then I have a body. And maybe all these things are not happening in partitions as I am seeing it, but they're all happening all at once. So if I consider that, and then going back to the activity of sitting in front of that mirror and looking at myself, or a reflection of myself in the dark, I would say, there may be other energies that are greater than myself pulling strings and orchestrating experiences in my universe. My journey.
based on what Sister Maria just shared, something there is important when we say like greater than myself. Like, and that goes back to the segment that Zach references a lot that did on motivation and persuasion. Just because something can pull your strings doesn't mean that it's greater. You know, and I think that especially when you look at Grecian mythology, like books like, you know, or poems, it really was a poem, like the Odyssey, it's trying to discover that, like, or even some of the questions that Plato, not Plato, I'm sorry, Socrates posed. You know, like, really, ultimately, do the gods have my best interest at heart, right? And then it's again the impersonal and the personal God. Like, am I really serving or aligning with the God that does have my best interests at heart, or am I aligning with something that's just triggering me? You know, like a great example would be social media. You know, you have like TikTok, which is the thing now. You know, for now, and that's a Chinese company originally. You know, the software developers. The version of what they present on TikTok is completely different there than it is here in the States, right? In terms of what shows up on the timeline. So your algorithm is affected by a couple things, you know, like your geography, your age, your watching habits. Like, it knows how long you stayed on a certain video. If you click like, if you subscribe, so you'll see more of that. So a lot of what many of us see here in America, which makes these social media platforms so annoying, is people trying to sell us stuff. You know, like every other post is someone trying to sell us some tummy flat tea, or how we can make $5,000 a day on Amazon or some crap like that. But if you're not trying to sell me something, you're showing me some black man being goofy, you know, because we can only see black men entertaining. He's dancing, or he's talking with a funny accent or something like that. And you're sure it's funny, but come on. You know, or they're doing pranks on somebody, or you see a woman clapping her butt cheeks. You know, like, that's pretty much what you see along your timeline. But when you go to other countries, and particularly you go to China, what they see are children winning spelling bees. They see women starting businesses. You know, they see men who are doing martial arts exhibitions. So their government purposely makes sure that their social media platform pumps in esteem building media to them, and that begins to affect and cultivate a certain mind inside of them. Whereas here, another kind of mind is cultivated inside of the people through what they absorb primarily. So again, strings being pulled, but is that thing greater? You know, that's why I think it's important to understand and learn that reflection, and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig as far as you can go, or like how you would see in Roman mythology or Grecian mythology, or even not into the Game of Death. You know, that whole concept of going to the top of the tower or the top of the mountain to get to the truth. You know, so either way, it's a journey. You know, that's the hero's journey. Like, the hero has got to see its God face to face and figure out who's pulling the strings. Is it something greater? And I may even go to the mountaintop. I may go to Mount Olympus. I may I can't go to Valhalla, but I may go to Mount Olympus and find out, like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. Nah, I'm not going to give you control anymore. You know, so I just think that's a key piece when we speak about, you know, something being greater, whatever. A lot of times we'll give the reins over to something that isn't greater, like social media, because we haven't taken time to really, or we don't have the courage to go on the hero's journey. And I'm going to mute up, but I just wanted to share, Shirley had put in the chat, I don't know if you saw it.
I did. I was gonna read it after.
You were gonna read it? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'll let you read it.
Yes. So give thanks for the share. It makes before I read it, I just wanted to say it makes me think about what you said earlier about knowing our core, because that gives us insight, I guess, is to like if something is greater than us or not, and then how to move accordingly. Um, so Shirla shared in the chat. Shirla did raise her hand to come on stage, but I guess not. I guess she don't want to come on stage. So I'll read it. She says, I'll answer. I'll try. I've done more stupid things, but the soul is always trying to bring elevation and balance. It's the unconscious mind, ignorance, and external forces that get in the way. Constant measuring and study in oneself can help in how you emit that reflection. Okay, so that was one part. So do you think you are the evil one, or not? I'll read more. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this even goes back to, I want to say, it was the past podcast when it was saying how once you work your way out, you ultimately become the evil one. Because now those who have been conditioned from social programming look at you like something wrong with you because you're pointing out, I see the problem with going to see this movie that you want to go see. I see the problem with, and I see the attack that one is starting to take on a group of people, and then now they start to look at you like, man, why you got to ruin it? We just want to watch a movie. It's just for entertainment. And it's like, nah, nothing is just for entertainment. There's always something that's going on behind it. But now can one, like you said, take that hero's journey and ultimately see that I think there is something greater. And when I'm saying something greater, it's like, yeah, you can see that when you're born, now all of a sudden everybody's trying to say that this is greater. If you have this, you need to have this, ultimately showing you what success looks like, putting something above your head that you really didn't crack open and start to walk to. And then when you start to take that journey, almost in like going down the yellow brick road, and you find out, you pull back that curtain, you're like, oh, no. I've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, led astray. But there's always that little tug, though. Like there's like a little nudge that's like telling you, even if somebody is sitting at a job, right, and they yell, you gotta work, and you might be sitting there, but something telling you, this ain't it. But then now, do you still fight to be like, nah, this is it because I'm making 6 figures, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that. You can't see it, but something is like a little nudge. It's like, come on, keep coming up here, keep climbing, keep working. But if one doesn't want to keep working, then you might go to the Mount Olympus and be like, oh yeah, this is the greatest ever. Or you be like, nah, man, this is a curtain. That's all it is. But now can I keep striving for something higher? Yeah, so that's what I wanted.
Hey man, something just crossed my mind. You know what I mean? While we mind crossing. Philosophizing. You talk about like going on that journey, right? I just think about somebody said something yesterday and I said something back, and it's like I could see the fear in them having to maybe think about what I was saying, and that like we have those little moments of possible transcendental evolution that we often pass up because we're just afraid. And the person that brought up the whole situation that's like been on, I guess, Black Twitter or whatever right now with Ime Udoka, and if you're not familiar with Ime Udoka, he's a head coach up in Boston of the Celtics, and married to Nia Long. And it just came out recently, but he got suspended for like a year because he was having a sexual affair with somebody who works on the team. I don't remember her name or whatever, but I know, and of course, he's married, so this like, y'all probably seen it, because like social media is going crazy. Like, poor Nia, that's a queen, and he a fool. He lost his job and his queen, and that. So somebody had brought it to me and was like, "Man, that brother crazy." He was talking to me yesterday, and I said, "Now please, well, I mean, y'all gonna be offended by what y'all offended about." But I said, "Man, that's a 51-year-old woman." I said, what I said to him, I said, we mean Nia Long like she's some type of queen or something. I said, he's 45 years old. He married a woman who was 7 years older than him. He was born in 1977. She was born in 1970. Let's start there. So, it takes a certain kind of brain. That's why I always say money doesn't equate to gain. So, yeah, you playing professionally, you making money, and then you go marry a woman 7 years older than you. Now I know some of you women listening will be offended, but that's just because you just like to be offended by stuff. Some of y'all just like, y'all need something to combat. Um, and I'm not saying that it's right to cheat on your wife, because I am definitely not an advocate of cheating. I think is so unhealthy. It's traumatizing for the person who gets cheated on. Some people don't get over that, like, in their entire life. They go to the grave hurt behind that level of disloyalty. But sometimes, but there's a difference between cheating on someone and betraying. And he may not have betrayed her. Especially again when you get with a basketball player who's 7 years younger than you. And we know that typically basketball culture is not monogamous culture. So you kind of know what the deal is when you get into it. But on top of that, you're 7 years older than him. This young guy has still got oats to sow, if you will. But it was just interesting. I had brought up a couple of points, and I was like, at 51, you thinking of Nia Long from Boys in the Hood when she was like 19. That's who you thinking. This is a 51-year-old woman, number one. So you don't know where his level of desire is. You looking at her because you can't get her. But to him, that ain't no big deal. Number one. Number two, maybe she's an asshole, was the other thing I said. I said, how do you know how she is in the house? Maybe she is intolerable. And he was just hanging in there for his child, because, again, there's a lot that when you know how to do mathematics, you know how to add things up. Okay, you're an actress. She just had her first child in 2011 with him. You're an actress. You marry this guy who's 7 years younger than you. You already know that you're a cougar. So cougars usually come in with a certain sort of agenda. And I'm not, trying to exonerate him. I don't know him. I don't care nothing about him. I don't care anything about her. But it was just interesting. And I know y'all might be like, you ain't got nothing to do. We talking about marriage. It got everything to do with it. Chill out. So the thing I'm saying is just that we have so many opportunities to go on a journey sometimes where we can look at things from an objective perspective or go into the shadow of things. Like, if you're going to bring it up, let's look at the shadow part of it, which is what I was kind of saying. Well, yeah, that's one perspective, but maybe Nia Long's an asshole. Maybe she's just horrible to live with. And maybe he just couldn't take it anymore, and he just went and had an affair at work, like a lot of people do. Maybe that's all that happened. What makes you think she's a queen just because she used to be cute 20 years ago? So now she's a queen, and he cheated on his queen, and we're going to make fun of him, and all these different things like that. When he got suspended from his job for a year, he's still winning, though. He, at the end of the day, he's still winning. He's a head coach, and he's only suspended for a year. He's only 45 years old. His mistress probably is not even going to leave him. And Nia's probably not either. So I don't know. It just made me think about sometimes how things are. There's a reflection of things that are happening even within our own psyches. And we have a moment to explore, and we run from those moments to explore, and they keep us from really growing. Yeah, so what you just said kind of made me think about it.
Would that be like the evil part of it, like running away from that moment of transcendence?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say that's the evil part because um, sometimes the evil part is embracing the evil part, you know, and that's a courageous thing. That takes you back to the prince, Machiavelli. Like sometimes in order to defeat a certain enemy, you have to use the weaponry of that enemy. So like evil is subjective, of course, right? But it's the inability to move with the objectivity of the heart and the force and the will of the heart. So my objectivity causes me, and I met Nita Long before. She was the sweetest woman. Like she was well, we were all young back then. Yeah, she was a woman. We were grown, but she was super sweet, super nice. I never met him. So if there's anybody I would have something nice to say, it'd be her. You know what I'm saying? Because I've actually met her personally before and kicked it with her, right? But the heart is objective. So objectively looking at it, that's the journey. When you're pushing forward with that and removing feelings out of it, and objectively, he's 51, he's 45, basketball player, he's 6'5", Nigerian at that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's gonna do what he's gonna do. She knew that coming into the game. So the evilness is sometimes like that. Like me citing that might be the evil. Like, well, dude, you cheated on your wife. You have children. They're probably embarrassed. I mean, if they know anything about it, they will one day. Obviously, all of that seems pretty bad. But it might not be. I mean, at the end of the day, this might all be a ritual that we don't even know about because we're not in that world. It might be a humiliation ritual. He might have just reached a higher level in his initiation. So I would say the evil just is, and the not functioning with the heart is when you're unwilling to go through the objectivity of it, but you're just leaning on one side of that reflection. And that becomes so very dangerous because that's in so many different um, spiritual systems, you're taught about that middle point. Even if you look at the yin and yang, the power of the yin and yang is not in the white or in the black, but it's in the line in the middle. That's why on each side you have a black dot, you have a white dot. So it's finding that middle spot. Middle spot is where all the power is, because outside of the middle spot is war. One side is always trying to figure out, is your fault, your fault, your fault. Every side is trying to figure out the cause. But when you sit in the middle, you just function through isness. Just like the heart is the middle. You're functioning through a reality of it just is what it is.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. It's funny when you mentioned me along being an asshole. My mind went to the touch the sky with Kanye West and Nia Long was in it. This is being all loud and obnoxious. that immediately came to mind. Exactly.
Just all the things we just, again, that's when you're a slave to the projections. So when you're a slave to the projections, you look at Nia Long like, oh, but she's beautiful though, and she's made up. Take the makeup off. They're all beautiful with all that paint on their face. Just like we still look at Angela Bassett like, man, she looks so good for her age. And I'm not saying she doesn't look good for her age, but what I'm saying is that there is a certain illusion that's projected to those who are still slaves to it. And they live inside of that. This guy might be the hero of the marriage. You don't know the situation. This might be something.
What we're gonna do is close down Facebook and YouTube. Give thanks for joining, and I would say join us on the Clubhouse podcast because that sound can be drowned out in the back. Give thanks, everyone, and I will see you over on the Clubhouse app. Peace.